wearing. He was, I had to leave early. They had the blessing of the grounds over at the museum. It was kind of a moving ceremony. It was very good. All right, so if I may call us to order and ask you for a moment of silence, I think, to reflect upon the continuing horrific war situation in Ukraine and bring blessings to those who were impacted by the conflict. Thank you. Amen. I'll just open. I know I've said before, I'm going to say it again. Thank you to both Amy and all of the staff at Budget Finance who've worked so hard to get us to where we are today. And it's always seems like a year-long chore, certainly 6 months or more. But it's the consummation of a lot of hard work on their part and on our all our departments' parts as well to craft their budget for the next year and try to be mindful of it all. So anyway, my thanks to them all. So with that said, I think Amy basically has a recap of where we are, and we kind of left our last workshop meeting or ad hoc meeting, I think, in a place with just a few adjustments. We're ready to bring a proposed budget to City Council. Amy?
Good afternoon, everyone. So we'll just today go over the general fund and enterprise fund budget and then all the tourism budgets as well. So just when we last met, our November 1st full council workshop, so kind of a reminder where we were with the general fund and enterprise fund budgets. We were at a $7.8 million shortfall, if you remember. And that was including all the, offsetting funding resources or funding sources, and ARPA funds and the pay plan, and then $13 million of our recommended requests from the departments. So we discussed different scenarios, one being cutting more expenditures, and then also talked about millage as well. So we did some work and came back and combed through everything through the base budget and all of the recommended requests. We reviewed the revenues and made some small increases, and we looked back through all of the requests for additional ARPA eligible items. And that resulted in where we had a $5.2 million funding gap. So we found a study that planning had asked for $20,000 that we realized we could use ARPA funding. So we added that. We increased business licenses a little bit by $650,000 just based on where they are this year so far. And business license fees are calculated on this year's revenue. So what we get next year or on this year's sales. So next year or income for the businesses. So that's what, based on how things are going this year, we feel like our 2022 business licenses will be pretty strong. So we felt comfortable increasing that by $650,000. And then we looked at parking revenues and thought we could go up another $270,000 based on our current year revenues. And then the original recommendations that we had from all the departmental requests, we reduced those by about $1.5 million. So the reductions, what we did was we had several positions that we had recommended in the budget. So we reduced how long we funded them for the year. So instead of funding them for a full year, we did that for 9 months, and that came to about a $290,000 savings. And then some positions weren't funded. That was $700,000. And then we just, like I said, we went back through all of the recommendations, and there were some larger things that we just didn't fund this year. Some insurance reductions. We looked at employee salaries and overtime in the recreation department and the way that we calculate that, and we felt comfortable reducing that amount some, just based on where they are, their current vacancy rates and how long it'll take them to fill those positions. And then just based on the hours that they've worked in previous years, we're really comfortable with that. And then the pay plan recommendation stayed exactly the same as we've discussed this whole entire time. And then we looked at base budget as well and reduced it by about $159,000. The biggest of that being parking enforcement, salary savings, which we don't typically budget for, but considering where we are, we felt like that was a good number to budget for next year. Any questions on any of that? I don't have as many slides today either. There's only 30, so that might help. Councilman Shade.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So what are the positions that were not funded?
There were there were an emergency management specialist in emergency management. They currently have one vacant position available, so we didn't fund an additional one since they have one vacant. There was a position that housing had asked for to be covered by the general fund instead of the grant. So we felt like we could wait one more year for that and not fund that this year. There was requests from the parks for crews. One of them was a Daniel Island facilities crew. So they were asking for, I think, 3 or 4 positions. We funded one of those for right now, which is basically the supervisor position, to allow that person to come in and kind of get things planned out and figure out what they really need. So we funded one of those instead of the whole entire crew. There was a construction technician that we didn't fund because of the vacancies that they have. And we thought, it might take them a little bit of time to fill those vacancies. So we didn't fund an additional position there. And then there was 2 trash crews that they had asked for that we didn't fund this year.
I'm sorry, 2 what positions?
Trash crews in parks. So they for the parks. They had asked for a peninsula trash crew to help go around in the parks, and then one off the peninsula. So we didn't fund those positions this year.
I think the main thinking behind that, council member, was that to focus on filling the positions that we do have budgeted first. I mean, there's a lot of Parks Department positions that need to be filled. So anyway, focus on those first.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we'll work with Jason and Parks to see what we can do to help him look at reorganizing a little bit as well. Any other questions? Okay. So our proposed budget with a 3 mil increase, like we had discussed on our November 1st workshop, that left us with a 5.1. It's an increase in revenue of $5.1 million. So we had just a little bit out of balance, $71,000. So that's something easily we could fix. So we did. So that's what the millage increase is. So like I said, we had I'm going back, $5.2 million funding gap with the 3 mills and the 5.1. That gives us just a $71,000 difference. So we just made a few small adjustments to balance the budget. It results in a $7.9 million deficit in the general fund, but a $7.9 million surplus in enterprise funds. So this is what the proposed budget would look like. So, and we kept all the columns in to kind of see, so you can see where the COLA, all the mandatory life safety items, our high priority items, and then where we're using reserves. And what that is things that departments aren't able to get done this year. We reserve those funds to next year for them to get them done in the next year in 2023. So that's what that number is. So you'll see the $7.9 million deficit for the general fund. Any questions there? So I'll move to enterprise funds, and then there's the $7.9 million surplus, which gives us a balanced budget.
That's just these are two summary pages and the net result is a balanced budget, right?
That's right.
And that's with the 3 mills.
That's right.
No. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, I'm sorry I missed half of it. I was outside with the fellow giving me an estimate on the tree cutting off the house. With this, since we have balanced the budget, will this be really enough with the 3 mills to do everything we need to do? I know last time we were talking about 3 mills, 4 mills, 5 mills, or whatever the case may be. And but let's put us in a really in a good way to make sure that we have everything covered instead of looking at it now with the 3 mills and they have to come back next year and go back again and do it again and do it again. I just got it's a problem. Sometimes you need just to go and do it and get it over with. Because if you go back year to year to year, then people look at it and say, well, why are you raising it every year? Every year they have to go back with the same thing, you know? So I'm just kind of thinking of the 3 mills versus the 4 mills or versus whatever the 5 mill or whatever the case may be, and do it one time and get it over with and it's done. You know, so I'm just that's why I want to ask that question, if this would kind of balance us out, that we don't have to come back again, you know, right back and do it all over again. So that's the only question I would like to ask on it.
Well, I think this budget does allow us to do what we need to do, and importantly, includes our compensation package that we all know we need, and that will help us attract the additional employees that we need to provide those services. So I think we've all agreed that was the most important component of this budget for next year. You know, the extra, each mill means another 1.7 million in funding. And don't get me wrong, you know, there's always something else out there we could do, but this budgeting is iterative, or, you know, you look at it again and again until you get to a good consensus on council. And I'd like to think we've done that, and you know, that we will garner everyone's support on this budget and be able to move forward in the next year. I think it allows us to do everything we reasonably can do for next year.
Okay. That's the only question I have. I just want to make sure, just to make sure. I just don't want to have to come back every year to do it every year. And if we have that, if we raise at that point and we have some left over from another year, we can go on and then have to go back with another raising the mills again.
All right.
You know, so that's what I was looking at, to make sure that they'll leave us in a comfortable position that we wouldn't have to really look at. I know we can't project what's going to happen next year, but just making sure we have a surplus anyway, if we do it and don't have to use it. So that's what I was looking at. Thank you.
Amy, do you have any thoughts to add in general?
You know, a big part of this, Councilmember Mitchell, is a salary increase to employees, which will be part of, you know, hopefully next year we wouldn't have to do something that big again. And then also we can get more of our vacancies filled. Some of the additional contracts and things that we have included in this budget, in order to get some of our, you know, city services done, we could back off of those. So hopefully we'll be in a much better place next year. Any other questions? Okay. So I know everybody likes to kind of see what the impact would be to our citizens. So this is 4% home and a 6% property, what the 3 mills would look like to one of our citizens. So 4%, and it'd be a $70 increase, and their taxes, 6% would be $100. And then for Berkeley County, it would be $68 and $98.
Okay.
Any questions? And then, you know, just the net millage, you know, that we talked about before several times, you know, it went down just a tiny bit in Charleston County with a local option sales tax credit. We have been getting Councilmember Boyd had asked me about Berkeley County because we always focus on Charleston County and never really talk about Berkeley. So I have included a slide here for Berkeley County to see what the net millage does in Berkeley County. You can see they stayed flat in 2022. So they also didn't experience any type of increase from the millage increase we had last year. I don't know if Councilmember Boyd is on here, but I'll make sure I send this to him later anyway. I know we had an inquiry from somebody we all know on Daniel Island as well.
It looks like the LOST impact from Berkeley County was greater over the last year if it remained flat when our millage went up, 3 mills. Isn't that right?
Looks that way, yeah.
So maybe sales are increasing a bit in the county.
They're strong, but you got to remember with Berkeley County, the number of retail sales versus what we receive in Charleston County. That's why their tax credit factor is so much lower than Charleston County, because we just don't have the amount of sales in Berkeley County, city of Charleston, Berkeley County, as we do in city of Charleston County.
Gotcha.
And so in conclusion, the budget includes a 3 mil increase. It includes the pay plan as we've discussed all along. We had to send the millage information to the paper today. We thought we had to send it tomorrow, but we had to send it today. So it will look like this is our budget will be posted in the paper. This budget will be posted in the paper on Sunday. We just, I think they asked for it a day early. I'm not sure. So we did send that off to them. We have to have the draft budget to you next week. So we'll give that to you anytime between now and next Tuesday. First reading of the budget is on December 6th. So any questions or issues anyone has?
Anybody?
Okay, so we can go over the tourism budgets for state accommodations, municipal, and hospitality fees. For our projections, just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like right now for 2022, we had budgeted 32 almost $5 million. We're at 33.9 as of October 31st. Very strong in our tourism funds right now. So we have increased the budget to 46.9 amongst all of them in 2023. And I'll go over those individually. So for state accommodations tax, the committee met yesterday, the external committee met yesterday and has approved this budget. So we will move this forward to full council, the first meeting in December, the December 6th meeting. So what's included is our contribution to the CVB as required by state law, transfer the general fund, which is included, required by state law. We have existing agreements and debt service that we fund with state accommodations tax, city-sponsored festivals that is run by our Office of Cultural Affairs that we always fund out of state accommodations tax. And then we had, because our funds are so strong, we are funding some capital projects as well. So we're doing an LED lighting project at the Dock Street Theater next year. Improvements at Angel Oak. These are already planned improvements, the parking lot improvements that we had already planned. It does not include anything like the presentation that you all saw last council meeting. So that's probably up for more discussion on that. And then restrooms at White Point Garden. And then the remaining funds will go to the grant applications that we received. So here's a detail of that, projecting $12 million. You can see all the things I just talked about that we'll be funding. And that's a total of $8.9 million for those items.
So, Amy, you mentioned that Angel Oak was for our prior plan, but there's no reason why we can't just reserve those funds to participate with the bigger plan that we saw last meeting, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we would just, depending on what's decided, we would use those funds for whatever the bigger plan is out there.
And how much was that we were setting aside for Angel Oak?
It's 550,000.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
I
then-
see.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Can I move on? So moving on to all this is really small, so I apologize, but you'll get these budgets, like I said, for the December 6th meeting. These are all the grants that the committee wanted to fund, which is a total of $3 million. I don't know if you have any questions on that. I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion about some of them at the council meeting on December 6th.
All right. Councilmember Waring?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy, when we get that information, will it have the amounts for each group?
It'll look just like this, Councilmember Waring. You'll have all of the detail to it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
And this was approved by our ATAX committee?
Yesterday, yes.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
Is there really a line item there for $150,000 for North Charleston Food and Wine Festival?
There is. That's what I mentioned. There will probably be a lot of
Well-
discussion at the December 6th council meeting.
I guess I just led with my chin on that one.
And Councilmember Seekings, the advisory committee was pretty unanimous on the amount that they recommended. There was discussion.
Mind numbing is all I have to say about that, but we'll talk about it at council.
Right.
Waiting.
They still have our name in it, and they still have a lot of events in our city. But anyway, we'll discuss it at the meeting, I'm sure. All right.
Okay, so moving on, municipal accommodations tax, 2%, this is a 2% tax. It's two separate ordinances. 1% is for property tax relief and 1% is for capital improvements for tourism related capital projects. So I'm not sure. Just want to make sure everybody remembers that. So the property tax relief portion funds the same as we do every year, which is the tourism related police and other salaries. So that's the $5.7 million you see there. And then the capital project funding is going towards the Market Streetscape project. I don't know if y'all remember when we went through the drainage projects, that was one of the projects that was very underfunded. So we funded it with municipal accommodations tax. So I think we have that funded now fully, but as construction costs change, we will see.
Amy,
Mhm.
Was any of this part in a TIF
No,
under Market Street?
mm-mm. It is not part of a TIF.
And we putting 7.7, how much we putting in out of this year's budget?
2020, this like 2022's budget, there wasn't anything for Market Streetscape, but for 23, that's the amount that we're funding.
7.744?
Mhm.
And this gets us to be able to move forward with the project finally?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's only been contemplated by the city since for about 30 years now. But of course, the drainage component wasn't part of the original streetscape improvements. And the tunnel got added, what, about 10 years ago, Councilmember Waring?
I think it was what Amy, was it the 2012?
Yeah.
Bond?
It was before I got elected, and so we got those drop shafts, but it doesn't really, it's better than it used to be, but it's not the full effect of what you'll get when you collect all surface collection, all the gutters along the sides of the street.
Right.
And it'll end up making a big difference for what used to be a creek bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money.
So moving on to the hospitality fee fund, that includes the transfer to the general fund based on our new calculation that we all talked about of 11 million. Includes all the contractual management agreement items that are typically paid out of this fund. It includes transfers of the parking fund for tourism related operational expenses too. That's basically the PEOs that are in those tourism districts. And then includes transfer for capital improvement items. There's $40,000 put away right now for the golf course restrooms. Should we move forward with that project? That was the tourism number that we calculated, the number of tourists and all that we could utilize hospitality funds for. And then there's $5 million for the CFD Central Station renovation. That's a pretty pricey renovation. And then 1.5 million for the ballpark upgrades that we have been talking about as well.
Councilmember Seekings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy, is that $40,000 enough for them to actually build out the restrooms that they want to put at the golf course?
No, but it's what we could fund with tourism dollars. It's that portion of it. We'd have to put additional funding away for that.
Do we have any funding for that?
It would have to be general fund reserves.
Okay, do we have any?
We
that we
do.
can put towards? Okay. I mean, it seems to me that that's a worthy project that we ought to try to get going sooner rather than later. And it's not getting any cheaper to do it.
Yeah, we got pricing for 2 bathroom and actually be, 2 bathrooms per facility, men's and ladies. And so 2 separate double bathrooms, and the total estimate will be about $500,000. So yeah, this is just a portion of that, but it's what we can get based upon the zip codes that we, track at the golf course.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So we have to still, that's part of the capital improvement plan, which we're still finalizing that. That should be finalized here fairly quickly, which will include that project as well.
We're going to build some bathrooms at the golf.
We're looking at all of the funding options for all of the projects to make sure that we have everything that's already on the capital improvement plan funded. And then whatever additional items we can add and that capital projects can handle will be on that list as well. Sorry. I sit so far away from the sensor in my office and I sit still, and so my lights go out sometimes, so I'm sorry about that. Anyway, so this is what the hospitality budget will look like when we send it to you all on the December 6th agenda. So you see all these normal things that we fund. And then this $5,050,000 here is the capital improvement items we just talked about. Any other questions that you have on that, just let me know.
Amy, I have one quick question.
Sure.
What was the total amount of the bond that we took out for the low battery seawall?
Oh
you
gosh,
remember?
why'd you ask me that? Is it 30?
I don't know. I guess because I was interested. Sorry.
I can't, it was either 32 or 37 million, somewhere in that range.
So we've got enough there to
Oh yeah,
get
we have
through
plenty.
phase 4. Okay.
Yes, we're good to go with that because we still have some funding left for that project as well from hospitality and municipal accommodation. So that project's fully funded.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
So kind of, Amy, on
Mhm.
this, what kind of, if we have some tweaking to do, there was I don't know, it may be hospitality or aid tax, but Mr. Mayor, when we had that film festival here last weekend, not last weekend, but a couple of weeks ago,
Right.
maybe through the grants, maybe we can try to help get them some money on that.
They would have to apply for next year, council member. Well, so the grant application process is already over.
Oof.
It would have to be 2024.
So when it comes to take, for example, Moja is definitely in need of I think, a major retooling. And the funding for Moja has been, if I remember, pretty level the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So that says city funded, that we usually fund out of state accommodations tax, Councilmember. I'll just run back to that budget real quick.
I apologize for being
No,
late.
that's
I was
okay.
out there at the IM Museum freezing with the mayor. Man, that wind chill got down pretty cool out there today.
Yeah.
So see this $400,000 right here, Councilmember Waring, that's all of our city festivals. And there's not an allocation necessarily for each of the festivals. It's just, that's the total amount that they have to play with for those festivals that they put on right there.
I got it.
We can have a conversation about that though.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Councilmember Gregory?
With regard to the Moja Festival, and perhaps you'd like to participate, I'm going to be arranging a meeting with Rick and Scott Watson to talk about a total overhaul of the Moja Festival and how we can get it to be international. And perhaps you'd like to be a part of that discussion. And as for the Afro Film Festival, we may be able to wiggle something out of the Moja funding for that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Amy. Out of that, depending upon what
Yes.
Moja puts on. So it may be able to be a subset of Moja at some point in 23.
Mm-hmm. We could start our international flavor with Barbados.
That's what we're talking about, Mayor. Yeah, okay. We're in the same place.
So Councilmember Gregory, that definitely could be a contract with, for the Moja Festival. Yes, if that's what you're asking.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then we can make sure that they're on the list for the applications next year
Okay.
as well.
Thank you.
If one of you gives me the information, that would be great.
We'll get it to you.
Okay. Okay, so we're okay with hospitality? So then the tourism budgets will be included in the agenda packets for the December 6th meeting. Municipal accommodations is an ordinance, so that will take 2 readings like the general fund enterprise fund budget does. And that's really all I have. If anybody has any questions. Otherwise, we'll get the draft budget out to you as soon as possible.
I've got a question, Amy.
Okay.
I know the capital improvement budget's not in front of us, but one of the things, Mr. Mayor, that we've been doing, at least West Ashley, is renting that pool space, from St. Andrews Parks and Playground. And the W.L. Stevens pool is obviously not, when we look at swimming, we don't have a year-round swimming pool, West Ashley, or actually west of the peninsula. West Ashley, James Island, certainly not Johns Island. And what are the plans in the capital improvement budget, in particular for the swimming pools, West Ashley and James Island?
Well, at this point, as you know, the only year-round pool we have is MLK
Right.
on the peninsula, and the others are seasonal pools. And honestly, until we totally I mean, part of the Parks Recreation Master Plan is to replace W.L. Stevens Pool with a new year-round pool there, and make it as large as the MLK pool, and put it on a different part of the property. I know we've done some conceptual site designs that would, build a larger, I don't know if it's Olympic size, but it's same size as MLK on the back part of,
I know what you're talking about, where they play
Park
football.
there. But
Yeah, I know.
until we do a bond for recreation improvements, it's not in our capital project budget as of right now. In my opinion, that's one of the top things we need to have on that next recreation bond. But I know the Recreation Committee plans to take the all the recommendations from that master plan and prioritize the things that they'd like to do first. I personally think that ought to be one of the things on the list. And next year, whether we decide to do a bond or ask our citizens to support a referendum and then do it, I mean, we're empowered to authorize that ourselves without having a referendum. But if council would like to go through that process again and get citizens' approval, because it would likely entail a millage increase in order to pull that off, just like they did in Mount Pleasant. So that's about what I know about it right now.
Okay. We'll talk about it a little bit, because it just seems like, anyway, we can talk about it. I won't stretch the meeting out with that.
Yep.
All right.
All right, anybody else? And as Amy mentioned, this will all go out in the agenda packet, and so you'll see all the detail. And we have any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to call us or call Amy and ask about it, but we certainly will have it on the floor so we can talk about it at council meeting.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. If there's no further business, we hereby are adjourned.